welcome back to another video. Thank you for joining me today. As always, I hope you're keeping well. So today I'm going to be talking you through my plans for spring, my spring TBR. I have picked out a whole heap of books, probably really overestimating the amount of books that I can get through in this time period. However, I'm just so happy that we're starting to get a little bit brighter days and, you know, just starting to come out of my depression hidey hole basically. If you're into these videos, you can always let me know below by liking and subscribing if you haven't already done so. It really helps the channel out. And without further ado, let's get into the books. Firstly, I have Chlorine by Jade. This is a book that I've seen so many great reviews for, so I had to get it out of the library, and I'm really looking forward to getting into it because it's based around a young girl who is called Renyu, and she's aiming to be able to swim well enough to receive a scholarship to go to college, or at least to get a scholarship to go to a decent enough college. And even though she knows that this is important, she really has her mind set on other things, mostly becoming a mermaid. She is absolutely obsessed with water. It's the only place that's ever really felt like home to her. And she really wants to be able to be free of her human responsibilities in order to just always be in the water, regardless of what anyone else thinks of her for this decision. And I do believe there's also a bit of a lesbian romance element to this as well. I've seen nothing but positive reviews for this, so I'm really interested in getting into this as soon as possible, just because so many people have said that once they finish it, they feel the need to immediately talk to somebody else about it to just relive what they've experienced with it. So it seems like it's going to be quite a gripping read, and I can't wait. Next up, I have Briefly a Delicious Life by Nell. So this is a literary fiction ghost story, and it follows a 14-year-old ghost called Blanca who died in a monastery in Majorca in 1473. And for the next 400-500 years, she's just stuck lurking around this monastery, spying on the locals and keeping an eye on her descendants and all that sort of thing, and just trying to keep herself as amused as possible in this limbo of an afterlife that she's experiencing. And one day, George Sand, who's a writer, moves in to this monastery with her 2 small children and partner, and Blanca becomes infatuated by George. This also has the element of a love story to it. So that's pretty much all I know. But again, I've seen really great reviews of this. I've had this on my TBR for some time now. I will admit this sounds like a little bit of a sweeter story than I'm used to, but I'm hoping that I'll really enjoy it. Another book that I'm really looking forward to getting to this spring is Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Tsujimura. This is about 7 young students who want to avoid going to school. So each individually ends up staying at home in their bedroom, and ultimately a portal ends up appearing to them, and each student is able to pass through the portal and they arrive at this castle. They can spend every day of their school hours at this castle, but they must leave before 5 p.m. Otherwise the castle keeper, which is referred to as the Wolf Queen, will basically have them for dinner for the most part. The group are also tasked with finding a key, and whichever student finds the key first, they will be granted 1 wish. So this sounds like it's just going to be like a whimsical, adventurous, spellbinding read. I know that it is aimed towards a younger audience. I believe it is considered young adult. I've had this on my to-read list for such a long time, and I'm so glad that I finally have it, that I can actually hopefully enjoy it. I usually really enjoy Japanese translations, so I'm really looking forward to getting to this. Next up is another one that I'm really interested in reading. It's Cursed Bunny by Bora Chung. This is a Korean short story collection that is mainly sort of sci-fi and horror tales, but they also really focus on like real world horrors, such as like the effects of capitalism upon society and patriarchy and all that type of thing. So I'm really interested on hearing this author's thoughts. It's meant to be kind of mind-blowing. Everyone that I've talked to about this seems to say that like I'll really enjoy it, and that it's going to be one of those books that I'm going to be thinking about for a significant amount of time after I read it, but really hoping that this is going to live up to my expectations. This is one of the oldest books that's been on my TBR for a while, so I really do want to get to it. It is The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Bronte. So this is about a woman who arouses the interest of a local man. She's called Helen Graham, and she moves into Wildfell Hall with her young son. And she very much wants to keep to herself. You know, this man, Gilbert, has basically made his interest known to her, and he does befriend her, but she doesn't really want anything much past a friendship. And her antisocialness is something that the locals pick up on, and they start gossiping about her and wondering about her past as to what has led her to Wildfell Hall. Through their steady building friendship, Gilbert realizes that there's much more to Helen, much more than meets the eye, especially when it comes to the past that she's trying to escape from. And it's really a story about women's rights and women's freedom. And just from judging the Goodreads reviews, it seems that a lot of people who I'm friends with on there has given it a 4 or 5-star review. So that's very, very promising to me. I think Anne Bronte is the only Bronte sister that I haven't read yet. And as a collective whole, I would like to complete all their works. So I have really, really high hopes for this. It does sound like a classic that I'm going to really enjoy. It kind of reminds me of the synopsises of Tom Hardy's books. So if it's anything like that, I think I'm going to be in good hands. Another classic that I have been meaning to get to for ages is The Death of Ivan Ilyich and Other Stories by Leo Tolstoy. This is meant to be one of the greatest novellas ever written, and it's always piqued my interest because it seems that it has a really resounding, lasting effect on people who read it. And I do know I'm probably going to be really depressed by it because, as the title kind of insinuates, it's basically about Ivan Ilyich's life up until his point of death. And it seems to be a tale that really focuses on the fact that Ivan Ilyich spent his life focusing on money, power, and status, and really kind of wasting his life in that respect. So I know it's probably going to be a serious downer, but I am planning to read the entire collection of short stories in this, and I'm probably going to read it bit by bit. I know I usually go into short story collections and read them as if they're a novel, one after the other. I just feel that I'm going to have to dip into the stories now and again throughout the spring period, mostly so that I don't bring myself down. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. It's meant to be a fantastic read. I really want to get back into reading more Gothic works because that's something I've also been really missing out on. So I'm going to be picking up Vatheck by William Beckford. This is one of the earliest works of Gothic fiction. It was originally published in 1786 and in French, and then later translated into English. And it follows our main character, Caliph Vatheck, who is a religious leader, but when a stranger comes to town with these letters to give to Vatheck, he becomes consumed with them because they are in a language that are unknown to him, and they also change their text daily. So Vatheck ends up renouncing religion, and he ends up asking the stranger to translate these letters for him, and then he soon realizes that this may have been a big mistake because he's going to have to make a human sacrifice. So this sounds like the perfect Gothic read for me. I really love when there's like unhinged men who have to make these massive decisions, and they're usually making these decisions based on their own egos and all that sort of thing, and then they just have a spiraling downfall. That really is just like such a mood for me, and just something that I really enjoy reading. I love reading unhinged women stories too, but like there's something about men getting their comeuppances in these tales that is just so entertaining to me. I'm planning to get into another book series as well this spring because, you know, I don't have enough series going on at the moment. But I'm looking forward to getting into the Dark Tower series. This is the first book in the series, The Gunslinger, and this is basically about the last known gunslinger, and it's set in this really bleak, deprived sort of world, and the gunslinger is on a quest to find his nemesis known as the Man in Black, because the Man in Black has all the answers that the gunslinger needs to know. And the gunslinger's ultimate goal is to get to the Dark Tower, which is the center of all the universes. So it sounds like it's going to be a really fun series, to be perfectly honest. Like, I didn't want to look up too much about it because I didn't want to be so easily spoiled on the next couple of books. Even with this book, I didn't delve too deeply into it. I just know that it's a series that I really want to read and that I'll probably really enjoy. And yeah, I am still on my book buying ban, so I'm planning to read the rest of the books from the library. But yeah, really, really looking forward to getting into this series. The last couple of books in this TBR are all horror related. So firstly, I'm going to be picking up The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. This is about a character called Kara who's forced to upheave her life after a nasty divorce, and she ends up living back in her family home. And over time, she ends up discovering her uncle's bunker, and she starts to explore this place. And there's kind of cryptic, weird words, and she basically starts meddling with things she doesn't know. She soon realizes that the space that she's been exploring is a pathway to other realities. And there are things in these other realities that basically feed on human fear and human anxieties. And Kara doesn't really realize that she's basically done something massively dangerous and invited these creatures in. This just sounds like it's going to be a fun kind of creature fest. I don't have like super high expectations. I know I'm probably going to enjoy it for what it is. I find that T. Kingfisher's writing is very readable, but I don't find that the stories are all that groundbreaking. It's not really pushing the envelope of the horror genre forward, really, but I still enjoy the stories for what they are. I'm also really looking forward to getting to Don't Fear the Reaper by Stephen Graham Jones. This is the second book in the Indian Lake trilogy, and I know the third book has just come out, so there's a lot of hype around the series and talk at the moment. I read the first book in January. I really enjoyed it, and this story takes place 4 years after the first book. It follows still our main character Jade after she has gotten back to her hometown for the first time in 4 years, and coincidentally it happens on the same day that a prisoner escapes after being routed to another prison. He ends up escaping into the town that Jade lives in, and things start going dreadfully wrong because he ends up starting to, kill again as a form of revenge. And Jade realizes that she's going to have to delve back into her slasher knowledge from the first novel. And the thing is that in these last 4 years, Jade has done a lot of growing up. She's not the exact same person that she was. She's matured. She's realized that maybe being obsessed with slasher films isn't really like the best way to move forward in life, and it's something that she's semi left behind. But like I said, she realizes this is the knowledge that really is going to help capture this killer again. It's meant to be the same sort of pace and style of the first one. I've seen people just give it rave reviews and say it's just as good as the first book in the series, and you know me, I like reading more of the same of the stuff that I like. So if this is pretty much exactly more of the same from the first book, I know that I'm going to really, really enjoy it, and I'm probably going to get the third book out of the library soon, if there's not too many holes on it. And then finally, the last book that I hope to read in spring is White Horse by Erika T. Wurth. This is about an Indigenous character called Carrie, who very much is the type of person that I think I would enjoy hanging out with. She's into heavy metal and dive bars, and she dresses alternative, and she just sounds awesome. But she has her troubles. Basically, her mother passed away, and her cousin realizes that she thinks that her mother's spirit is trapped in a bracelet. So when Carrie receives this bracelet, she realizes that it might not just be her mother's spirit that's trapped in this bracelet. There might actually be something else in there with her. This sounds like a really cool, interesting take on possessed objects. It's been a while since I've read anything kind of similar to this. And it seems that it's also going to deal with a lot of Carrie's own issues with her past and the trauma that she has to face, because a lot of her relatives won't talk about her mother's death, and she really has to discover the real reason as to what led to her mother passing away. I feel like it's going to be heavy on the horror, but also heavy on the emotional aspect to it as well. I haven't seen many reviews of this, but it was one of my most anticipated releases that came out last autumn, so I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into this, because it really does sound like a tale that I'm going to really enjoy, fingers crossed. So those are all the books that I'm planning to read this spring. If you have any opinions on them, if you've read any of them, or if you're planning to read any of them, let me know below. And of course, if you want to check out the actual TBRs that I have set myself for each month, you can always go and look at my YouTube shorts, because I usually post them there. They usually go up a little bit late because I tend to forget about them, but you can also check them out over on my Instagram too, because I do like taking a nice aesthetic picture, because I feel like it helps motivate me stay on track with my reading plans. If you want to keep up with me outside of YouTube, you can always follow me on my Instagram or over on my TikTok, where I make short form bookish related content and just content that I don't really post on YouTube all that much. And if you haven't already done so, feel free to like and subscribe, because it really helps the channel out, like I said. And as always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you soon. Goodbye.